Mr. McCall is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Around the world, American personnel are being attacked in their homes, in hotels, and even on public streets. For most, it starts with what seems like a loud noise that's followed by pain or a sense of pressure in the head. Many are left with chronic damage, including hearing loss, vertigo, cognitive and motor impairment, severe headaches, and inability to sleep. In the words of a recent press report, our diplomats are suffering a, quote, concussion without a concussion. The Senate-passed bill before us today provides important authority to assist these brain injury victims, and it deserves our unanimous support. But we all must do more. Unfortunately, these attacks have continued and spread. First, it started in Havana in late 2016 and spread to China in 2017. 2 months ago, press reports described more than 130 possible cases all over the world, including right here in Washington, D.C. And just last week, 24 new cases among U.S. personnel in Vienna were revealed. Simply put, this is kind of scary stuff. The people who serve our nation overseas are generally worried for themselves and their families, and they need to know that we have their backs. When the prior administration pulled our personnel out of Havana 4 years ago, they said, quote, numerous Embassy Havana employees have been targeted in specific attacks. These employees have suffered significant injuries as a consequence of these attacks. In contrast, President Biden has refused to call these what they are, attacks on U.S. personnel. And Secretary of State Tony Blinken publicly said perhaps no one is responsible for causing these injuries. I will tell you from my briefings and briefings in another annex, that is absolutely incorrect. We may not be able to fill in all the blanks yet, but we know too much to dismiss these attacks as unexplained health incidents. 4 years ago, medical experts convened by the State Department agreed victims were likely dealing with brain trauma from a non-natural source, and the evidence has only grown more conclusive since then. Last year, the National Academy of Sciences said that directed pulsed radio frequency energy is most likely the cause. According to the NAS, the situation raises grave concerns about bad actors who may have weapons. So while we must assist victims with today's bill, we must do more. We must call these heinous attacks what they are, and that they are attacks. And the people attacking us need to know the consequences will be severe when we find out who they are, when we get the attribution. Otherwise, we aren't doing what we can do to deter future attacks. The men and women who serve our nation overseas deserve no less. I have prepared a bill to do just that, which I will be introducing this week. And I want to thank Chairman Meeks and our Intelligence Committee colleagues for their bipartisan work on the Havana Act, which I strongly support. And with that, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves.
biggest violations of medical ethics ever perpetrated on U.S. citizens. This week, medical experts and others are meeting to make sure something like this never happens again. And leading that effort is Amy Gutmann. She heads the Presidential Commission for the Study of Bioethical Issues, and she is also the president of the University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Gutmann, thanks for being with us. This is not a single incident. We've actually had many of these things happen. What is the purpose of your commission? Are we worried that these types of things are still happening today?
Allie, we can't know whether these things are happening today unless we have a fact-finding mission, and that's what President Obama has asked the Presidential Commission on Bioethics to do, to actually meet with experts and ask them, what is it today that would prevent these things from happening again? They've happened too many times in our history, and we want to make sure, and the President wants to make sure, that we can assure the American public that if they are part of a scientific experiment or a medical experiment, they will be treated with respect and fairly. So we don't know right now how the United States is relative to the rest of the world, and that's why the President has asked me to convene an international task force of experts. And those experts are going to sit down with me, and we're going to actually discuss how different countries and the United States fare in this regard. And we should come up with a report by year's end that can inform the public as well as the President of where we stand.
Okay, we know you're having more hearings in May. We'll follow this along with you. Very curious to see what happens. Dr. Amy Gutmann is the chair of the Presidential Commission for the Study of Bioethical Issues and the president of the University of Pennsylvania.
To do is just very quickly go around and have the commission members just introduce themselves, and then I'm going to open it up to a few questions. Yeah. Barbara, would you begin? Put your mic on.
Thanks. Barbara Atkinson from the University of Kansas Medical Center.
Nelson Michael from the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research.
Christine Grady from the Department of Bioethics at the Clinical Center, NIH.
John Aris from a place you might know something about, University of Virginia.
Lonnie Ali.
Jim Wagner from Emory.
Raju Kuchalapati, Harvard Medical School.
Nita Farahani from Vanderbilt University.
Steve Hauser, UC San Francisco.
Anita Allen, University of Pennsylvania.
Alex Garza, Department of Homeland Security.
And Dan Solmesi, the University of Chicago.
Thank you. My name is Gerald Schatz, and I'm a lawyer and retired assistant professor of ethics and law at Michigan State University. There is law out there. The bioethics community has been oblivious to it, but there is international law. There is the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the United States ratified in 1992, and it makes informed consent an absolute requirement, no exceptions, not even in emergencies, subject to those normal legal fictions of consenting for the incapacitated patient to medical care and so forth. Additionally, the Geneva Conventions and additional protocols to the Geneva Conventions make research very, very difficult or prohibited altogether for those individuals who are caught up in war and armed conflicts. Thank you.
My name's Alan Hornblum. I'm a Philadelphia-based author who has written books on things running the gamut from organized crime to Soviet espionage. But for the purposes of this meeting, I've written 2 books on the history of using prison inmates as test subjects. You may be familiar with one or both of them. I'm working with a couple colleagues now on the history of using institutionalized children as test subjects for research, and I can assure you some of the material I'm finding is quite astounding, including the fact that Nobel Prize winners went to institutions for the feeble-minded to use them as test subjects. And in interviewing people over the years, not just test subjects, which I do on a regular basis, but also the doctors who initiated these experiments, these clinical trials, it's remarkable that almost all of them articulate how little medical ethics was taught in medical schools at the time. And I had to bring up, I had to educate one of them, in fact, about the Nuremberg Code. When I mentioned it, he wasn't even familiar with it. So I would encourage you to be as aggressive as possible, not just describe what happened, but really condemn those who broke the law, because there's doctors making decisions right now, and those decisions are going the wrong way. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Dr. John Hall. I'm a medical doctor from Texas. As I understand the memorandum from the President, it's for you to determine if current legislation is adequate in protecting individuals and if there's any ongoing experimentation. In reviewing the common rule, it's very obvious that there's a lot of loopholes to informed consent. All of the horrific experiments you've mentioned, Willowbrook, MKUltra, radiation experiments, mostly were done without informed consent. They were funded by the DOD and intelligence agencies, where I'm not even so sure you would know if there's an IRB, much less if an IRB is looking at informed consent. As a physician, relative to some of what you're hearing today, in the community, we are seeing an alarming rate of complaints of use of electromagnetic weapons, microwave auditory effects, silent sound spectrum, EEG cloning, which has taken the lab out of the laboratory and into the home. Most of these, from the research that we've reviewed, can be done remotely. It seems to be more weapons research than medical research. I personally corresponded with upwards of 1,500 victims, all complaining of identical complaints from every state in the nation of being exposed to electromagnetic radiation, non-ionizing radiation for the use of cognitive control or behavior control. I've submitted a paper to you, and there's another paper submitted to each member from another physician in Kansas City, alluding to the same thing.
My name is James Walbert. To date, I have one of the strongest cases documented of these unethical violations against our society. Due to the facts of having the kinds of professionals that I have involved with this case, I have been able to prove that this crime against others and myself is real and shows reason to be concerned with. I am in hopes that I am able to prove the same thing to this committee. And by the introduction of the evidence that I have to introduce to the committee, I and the professionals that are standing with myself in this crime would like for this committee to consider the introduction of these documents with the growing concern of this crime to the President for his review. With these hopes in mind for this consideration, I would also like to ask of this committee to consider an investigation into these unethical violations of others and myself that are affected by this crime. With this consideration of this investigation request into these matters, I would also like to point out the abuses of children that have been documented by the many professionals that I am currently working with into these matters of this crime. To date, the professionals have been documenting these offenses against the children that are related to the many victims of these crimes. They have been, proven this concern to be valid, as I am pointing out to this committee, the growing concern of fellow states that have now passed laws against forced chipping of an RFID tracking chip. I was also wanting to ask if I could provide a portfolio of introduction of 12 professionals from political support to medical investigations, as well as private investigative support to the committee as well for review.
May, thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Lisa Becker. I am also from Wisconsin. I have been a non-consenting test subject in military medical research. I, too, believe my experience is referred to as no-touch torture, utilizing defense technologies. Jonathan Marino, he basically predicted all this a number of years ago in his book Undue Risk. I'm asking you to help initiate a congressional investigation. We've all come a long way. This is what is needed. We want to have the accounts of this extreme human rights abuse that's going on in our country documented and heard, all of the accounts. We also need what was done during the Clinton administration, which is a major declassification of some of these documents that are hiding what's been going on. I speak for many when I say we've suffered long enough. My personal experience has been 10 years. I've been vilified. I've been ostracized. I've been tortured. I have burns on my body. I'm an American. I have rights. The answer to the question, the big question today, could it happen today? The answer is yes, it is happening today. It is happening for some of us every day. I am begging for you to help us. Thank you.
My name is Jeremy Radlow. I'm here to tell you that non-consensual human experimentation is happening in the United States today. I've been the subject of this experimentation for more than 5 years. Calling these activities experimentation is truthful but possibly distracting. I think the criteria governing the selection of experimentees will prove to be a much bigger scandal than the experimentation itself. The psychological torture protocol that's part of the so-called experimentation includes, but is not limited to, the use of non-lethal weapons and mind-invasive technology. Sleep deprivation, pain center stimulation, and worse are used against subjects. While some experimentees have found foreign objects in their bodies suggesting implantation, most have not. Receiverless mind-invasive technology has been demonstrated under laboratory conditions, but the most likely explanation is that experimentees are implanted with foreign objects either too small to appear on commercially available scanning equipment or designed to be indistinguishable from the surrounding tissue. These activities are highly deceptive, use clandestine technology, and have the fingerprints of the CIA all over them. It's unreasonable to expect isolated individuals receiving this treatment to furnish proof. A thorough investigation is warranted. Thanks for your time.
My name is Catherine Nestor, and I'm from Pennsylvania. This commission has spoken of a long history of abuse of the human research subject. Although no one mentioned MKUltra today, President Clinton recently apologized for this. My young child and I have been used as non-consensual test subjects. We have been subjected to COINTELPRO-like stalking, remote neural monitoring, and electromagnetic torture, resulting in psychological and physical damage. And I won't go into the details of that because I have 4 pages written in here that is very similar to Connie's testimony. Please do not wait 70 years to investigate this. I ask Dr. Amy Gutmann to begin today. There is new work for the Commission for Human Subject Protection on our shores. And please give us a dramatic response, Susan, and please give us a congressional hearing. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Peter Rosenholm. I'm from Rhode Island. It's non-consensual human experimentation. It's remote, it's covert. It's hard to prove it a lot of times. Many of my attacks were microwave weapons. Medusa is one. In all the hospital statements when I was hospitalized, I told of being hit by radiation weapons, that I could hear voices. Medusa now admits to all those capabilities. The other thing we deal with is like a COINTELPRO attack. Law enforcement attacks us, discredits us, will put us in a mental hospital if we try too hard. These people all don't want to go to doctors. The Patriot Act has provisions where doctors have to follow what they say. So a lot of these people aren't getting their teeth fixed, aren't going for medical care. We're in a bad situation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Connie Marshall. I'm a former mayoral candidate from Louisville, Kentucky. I have never been involved in any criminal activity. I found a document in my bank account that said, problem with Kentucky government, check federal government paperwork and file before releasing information to anyone. I am an 8-year victim survivor of assaults by directed energy weapons. The torture I've experienced consists of mind paralysis, being hypnotized or placed in a trance-type state. being tracked by a drone or satellite, controlled dreams, sleep deprivation, V2K, which is voice to skull, projected sound, extreme muscle spasms, and extreme muscle cramps, low frequency noises in my home, high frequency noises in my home, sexual stimulation. I am watched in my home 24 hours a day and followed around everywhere I go, though I do not have a criminal history. When I ran for mayor of my town, I was also attacked at debates and forums. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Deborah Paulson from Kenosha, Wisconsin. I'm going to refer to a paper from Professor McCoy at the University of Wisconsin on no-touch torture. He talks about a total assault on all senses and sensibilities, auditory, visual, tactile, temporal, temperature, and survival, refined through years of practice. Sensory disorientation relies on a mix of sensory overload and sensory deprivation via banal procedures, isolation, then intense interrogation, heat and cold, light and dark, noise and silence, for a systematic attack on all human stimuli. I've been a human subject for experimentation for almost 2 years, and I've contacted Dr. Hall. I stand with a very large group. Excuse me, I'm very nervous, but I'm very tired of having my rights taken away. And thank you for hearing me.
I've spoken to probably 3,000 people. He's on probably 1,500. He's on 5,000. There's a lot of us across the U.S. And there's certain statistics, I think, that if you find that there is something going on wrong, somewhere along the line somebody has to do an investigation. There's a certain percentage. You said you guys wanted to be in the know. We're giving you the information now so that you are in the know. There is something going on, and I think yesterday some of the colleagues went ahead and said that we didn't really talk about whether there's energy weapons or not, but we have thousands and thousands of documentations about energy weapons themselves, and all we're asking for is an investigation on this. People are being harmed, people are being tortured, and people are being killed, and I think it's a pretty important thing for a bioethic committee to look into, and all we ask today is to please do that. My friends are dead, tortured to death by electronic weapons. And I don't know how many more people will die. And I hope I will be here again if you have this next year.
I'm going to do the best that I can while being hurt by a national defense weapon that our country built. I love our country, but I am in contact and have been with the chief of the Department of Defense Fraud, Waste, and Abuse hotline. He's worked with me and my wife for 2 years, and he went to the Pentagon after we were air assaulted by a jet at 150 to 200 miles an hour, that being me and my wife. That's why my face is rebuilt, and she's at home taking care of 100 head of cattle with a brain tumor. I've had 3 removed. I guess my point would be this, is that I stood up to this program, and that would be the Joint Operations System that our country built with the non-lethal and less than lethal weapons system. And I'm the only one known in the world, besides the people that helped build this system, to have this actual pulse on camera and have caught it. And I would like to submit that disc. But I guess the one question I would have, it's okay, Eli, you don't have to beat me up for the microphone. The one question I would have is, first of all, I would like to submit this to you as promptly as possible, and then ask each and every one of you that 90% of the people that approached you spoke the same way I am, scared. Would you please help save my life? Ma'am?
My name is Letitia Peters. I'm from Trenton, New Jersey. I was a federal government employee working 16 years as an electronics engineer right here in Washington, D.C., where I got sick due to toxic metal exposure. And when I started complaining about it and using my rights, I believe now, after 5 years of being out of the government, after 16 years of service, that I was put into this 24/7 execution chamber. And I, too, am looking for congressional investigations. I should be covered under the Whistle Protection Blowers Act. And I, too, would like to submit documentation, which I presented. And I have been denied medical treatment. I have been disregarded as being non-human. All my rights have been violated. And I just want to demonstrate some of the evidence that I have and provide to you, because I've been trying to get to the president, but I know all of my information has been rerouted. So I, too, am requesting a congressional investigation as well.
Hi, good evening. My name is Nigel Nicholson, and I have been in a psychological coercive mind control program. This started in 2002, where I was falsely arrested, I was drugged, and I believe I was hypnotized. I've been job mobbed. I've been put into a what I call a assassination type program. Okay, I have been villainized. My friends has totally retreated from me, even though I've continuously reached out to them. Okay, I have been under what I believe is neuro monitoring. When I can think of something and go outside and somebody will walk by me and repeat what I just said, I know I'm not crazy. Okay, regardless of what is being said, they make the victims of these programs to be diagnosed with a psychological illness to hide these crimes, because we all know that to discredit an individual, if you give them a mental illness or diagnose them with a mental illness, no one is going to believe us. No one is going to believe you or I. And this is how they are hiding these crimes.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name's Tammy Battaglia. I've been enrolled in psychological experiments on the record since the age of 13 without my consent. I've spent many years recovering from experimental hypnosis, physical and biological testing that I've undergone during decades of tests conducted by government-funded doctors, corporate think tanks, and researchers. I've experienced tremendous loss and trauma over the years of subjection to non-consensual experimentation, which has been devastating to my life. There's no way to seek justice for what we've endured, because in America, the land of the free, justice is not free. The experiments violate every right imaginable and offer no restitution whatsoever. If myself or any other victim approaches law enforcement or government agencies, we're spurned and in some cases forcibly taken to mental institutions. I've not consented to be experimented on by any branch of the government, military, or members of the American Medical Association. I deserve to be vindicated and released from these experiments immediately, as do all of us. Thank you.
We provide citizens who are currently non-consensual victims of cognitive neuroscience and neurophysiological research and experimentation, which is enabled remotely through extreme low-frequency computer-to-brain entrainment technology. This technology exists and can be verified on subjects with a high degree of accuracy using current neural imaging technologies. Okay, this is an atrocity that has gone on for years, and like the Tuskegee experiments, is clearly within the scope of this commission. Okay, we ask that the committee, just because of the existence of our organization, Freedom for Covert Harassment and Surveillance alone, we have thousands of people who have contacted us claiming to be victims of this. The justification for our existence is justification that you should investigate this occurrence further. Okay. We need tests to determine if a citizen has been harmed by a cognitive weapon. These are cognitive weapons that somehow these people are being experimented on with. And just overall, we need to ban the unethical use of science and technology on all citizens for any form, for any reason, and in any form. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Michael Shaneyfeld. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. The question that I brought to the board is that in 2000 I was approached by an ex-Navy sub-diver, and he brought to my attention the use of an auditory weapon that he stole from the United States Navy. Yeah. He told me about this weapon that he stole from the Navy, and he told me how the weapon would affect the central nervous system of a human. And he wanted me to go out and assist him in certain things. And in 2006, my life changed. I woke up one night and I got a strong electrical shock in the center of my chest. Medically, I've been looked at and reviewed over and over and over again. My brother, he's a doctor. And I know exactly what's occurring is wrong, and I feel like I'm a test subject. And I've responded to the government, and the government responded back to me. But I have not seen no action. I've given y'all a report, and y'all can look at the letters that I've sent in.
Thank you very much. My name is Sina Rayan. I am an Iranian American, been living here since 1976. To answer the question to the chair lady that if it's still going to happen or is still going on, I will assure you that it's still experimentation going on, and one of live standing right here. I strongly believe that I have been targeted for the experimentation of a brain research since September 2008. Without my consent, they are controlling my mind and using electronic remote control device to send instruction. In the past 2.5 years, I have been subjected to constant electric shock, sleep disturbance, sleep deprivation. This inhuman and painful method of torture include reading my thoughts and memories. Through this, they have been able to control me and subject me to severe pain that I have been suffering for the past 29 months. My health has deteriorated during this time, and I have no medical insurance to seek medical help. My life is in danger, and I need your help from the government. I am only asking them to stop this painful torture and leave me alone so I can go back to my life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michaeline Jones. I'm right here from D.C. I am the subject of MK Ultra, mind control. I am also the subject of electromagnetic radiation, and I have many videos to prove it. I've taken these videos to newspapers and to various places, even including, CDC, and everyone has just turned away as if this is hush-hush. I've had lawyers deny me assistance because they said this is too big. So in research, I found out that the former Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney asked for a reinvestigation under her resolution HR 1026 to reinvestigate COINTEL activities. I am constantly stalked. There's many covert activities that have followed me. I would like all of this medical abuse to be investigated, and if possible for you to get back with us. I didn't know about this meeting until yesterday, and I do appreciate your letting me have this time to speak. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Miriam Snyder. I'm an educator, minister, human rights advocate. I work with many people that have suffered the ramifications of unregulated, deadly human research experimentation. Since I've brought this to the public, I've become a victim too. Human research experimentation is being used to assassinate innocent people. I'd like to know the Commission to address what penalties and protections are in place for researchers, and when are we going to start incarcerating researchers?
I just want to conclude by saying that the President's charge to us to assure him that current rules and international standards adequately guard the health and well-being of participants in scientific studies funded by the federal government demands that we consider basic ethical principles following careful deliberations and evidence gathering. With the discussion, we are well on our way. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you very much.
Can a microscopic tag be implanted in a person's body to track his every movement? There's actual discussion about that. You will rule on that, mark my words, before your tenure is over. Can brain scans be used to determine whether a person is inclined toward criminality or violent behavior? You will rule on that.